The Gatling gun is genuinely one of the most fun weapons in the entire game. In a previous life, it actually used to be the optimal strategy in Eagerlith Nemesis runs since Hellfire was so strong and spammable as an art, and even today it probably remains either the second or third best DPS weapon out there, assuming you have the proper setup. It doesn't really do anything besides damage, but hey, when you're good at damage, that's all you really need sometimes. While it cannot compete with the Ether build, it still has a pretty effective thermal build as well, and in this video I'd like to showcase both of those options. I'd also like to talk about the Gatling gun's strengths and weaknesses, and showcase how to use it most effectively. As always, if you enjoy guide content like this on Xenoblade Chronicles X and want to see more on the remaining weapons and other types of guides, please do be sure to subscribe to the channel because it does help me out so much. I'm getting very close to 100,000 subscribers and would really love to hit that milestone soon, and every little bit helps. Let's get started. The Gatling gun doesn't have too many arts, but it does make the most of a lot of the arts that it has access to, with a lot of ranged arts, a few auras, and one singular green art as well, but mostly ranged attacking arts. First up, we have Missile Volley. This will deal thermal damage and inflict thermal resistance down. This is locked to the thermal attribute no matter what type of weapon you are using, and since it applies that thermal resistance down, you can do more damage with all of your thermal attacks after this. Now, as I've already mentioned, you're still not going to get as much damage as a general Ether build, but you can actually make a pretty effective thermal build, and since, of course, Gradivis is weaker to thermal damage and other types of damage, we can actually showcase that pretty effectively in this video at the very least. So Missile Volley is a very good art, especially if you are trying to run and take advantage of that thermal build, just for kind of leading into your really strong potential-based TP attacks, which is going to be the optimal and best strategy that you have available to you most of the time. But if you do want to try to have a ranged attack build instead, this is actually a pretty good art. It has 6 hits, 400% hit scaling, so you actually can do some good ranged attack damage as well, but the potential-based TP arts actually just scale a lot higher for this weapon, even still. Next up, we have Hellfire. Like I said, this is one of the absolute best TP arts in the entire game. 12 total hits with 400% hit scaling, giving you a massive 4,800% hit scaling, and it also has very fast animation for the 12 hits that it has, just kind of a spray of attacks that is very quick. That means it can be spammed very quickly as an art if you're able to spam it back-to-back with certain setups that use secondary cooldown reducer or rapid cooldown, and that is what has made it one of the strongest arts over the years. Even outside of that, though, it is very strong, has a really powerful bonus effect of 200% more damage when an aura is active, which you should pretty much always have an aura active when you are trying to take advantage of your really powerful TP-based arts. So that's basically a free damage boost, and you get a lot of damages out of the total hit scaling of this art. It can do a massive amount of damage. This is not locked to thermal damage. This is going to be your main TP art if you are not using a thermal build, because you can do a lot of ether damage with this if you use the right setup, and that is going to make it one of the strongest TP arts that you have access to. Next up, we have Fire Carnival. This is a 10-hit art, which has 250% hit scaling, meaning it actually has 2,500% total scaling. Once again, though, this is a thermal locked art no matter what, so if you are running a thermal build, it can be very useful. If you're using a thermal ranged attack build, you can get a lot of damage out of it, but otherwise, you're probably going to mainly be using this for overdrive count building, because it's 10 hits, so you can get a lot of overdrive count from using this art, which can be very beneficial to you. Otherwise, it's very similar to Missile Volley. They have very similar ratios overall, so you can get a lot of damage instead of alternating them if you're trying to do a thermal ranged attack build. So you do have that option available to you. And all around, the Gatling gun just has a lot of very powerful ranged attacking arts. It's really funny. Next up, we have Enhanced Stand. This is one of the 2 auras that the Gatling gun has available to it. Well, this one's going to be significantly less useful. All it does is boost your auto attack power and recover your HP continuously. These are not very useful effects. You have better ways to keep yourself alive, and auto attack damage is such a massively small source of your damage that you really just do not need this as an effective attack boost, especially because inside of Overdrive, you're not likely to ever really be auto attacking since you're trying to spam your arts as much as possible. That makes Enhanced Stand a pretty bad aura and probably never worth running. Next up, we have Bullet Twister. This is a weapon damage attack, so if you are using a ranged attack build with ether damage, you're probably going to want to use this one instead. This art also has 2,400% total hit scaling, meaning it is just another art right in that damage range, but this one, since can be any element, is probably going to be a bit more useful. But if you are running a thermal weapon, you can also still run this on thermal weapon builds as well, meaning it combos very well with Missile Volley, Fire Carnival, and just Bullet Twister. You can alternate all 3 of these arts to just get a lot of additional thermal damage on enemies, and if you're running an ether attack build, you're going to want to just probably run this instead. You also get a lot of TP if you have an aura active when you use this, which can be pretty useful as well, just for keeping your TP up, if you want to run this as a kind of a TP generation on your potential-based TP art builds. Next up, we have Thermal Payload. This actually has an even higher damage ratio than Hellfire. It is 6 hits with 900% hit scaling, meaning it is 5,400% hit scaling total, but this one is going to be locked to thermal damage no matter what. So that is going to be the main drawback compared to Hellfire. However, if you are running a thermal build, this can actually hit a bit harder than Hellfire, although it's not likely to since the bonus effect needs the enemy to be toppled to get the extra damage on it, meaning Hellfire is probably still going to end up hitting harder most of the time. But if you can get that bonus effect to go off, you can get a lot of damage out of thermal payload if you are using a thermal-based damage build. The strongest way to use the Gatling gun, with a thermal build at least, is going to be alternating Hellfire and thermal payload. You can get a lot of damage out of doing that and use up less of your augment slots from doing that as well, which can be really, really powerful. On the thermal build that I am showing today, I actually am going to be using both of these arts, and I'm just going to showcase how much damage you can get when you alternate them and can effectively chain them together. And then, of course, we have Cool Off. This is going to be the only green art that you have access to on the Gatling gun. This one will remove your aura to give yourself TP, and it also removes debuffs. Removing debuffs can be really nice, but removing the aura to give yourself 2000 TP can actually be fairly effective, especially early on in a fight. Just for giving you some TP back, you can activate your aura really quickly, activate this, get some additional TP out of that, and then use that to kind of continue your chain, build up your count before you activate your aura again, and kind of go ham with the damage, which is what I like using it for at the very least. So it does have some situational use, can be somewhat useful, especially if you have your aura completely off cooldown. You can just activate this and then activate your aura again and just get a free 1000 TP. So that could be really, really nice to just kind of have access to. It's a decent way of getting some additional TP depending on what build and what you are doing at the very least. Next up, we have Bulletstorm. This is a 12-hit art with 160% hit scaling, and it has the weapon attribute effect, meaning it'll be any element depending on what your weapon is. The main use for this is that it has 12 hits, so it might be slightly more useful than some of the other attacks that you have as far as building overdrive count. But you have so many easy ways to build overdrive count with the Gatling gun anyway, since most of your attacks are really, really high hit count, that you're probably not going to need to really be worrying about running this most of the time. And the bonus effect isn't really that useful either, and the total hit scaling is going to be less than your other ranged attacking arts, so you're probably not likely to run this in most situations. But, hey, if you want another ranged attack ether-based art, you can consider running this along with Bullet Twister. So that is an option you do have available to you if you just want to kind of alternate your ranged arts like that. You do have this option available to you if you don't want to run thermal damage, and you want to run an ether damage ranged attack set instead. But most of the time, I'm going to recommend just running your TP art since they have massively stronger ratios. Like I said, Hellfire, one of the absolute strongest arts in the entire game, and can work very well with both thermal and ether damage. And then finally, we have Titan Recharge. This is your other aura, the significantly more useful aura. It's not as good as some of the auras you can get from some of the melee attacks that might boost your potential or ranged attack damage, but it has somewhat of a useful effect of being able to reduce your secondary cooldown and also bypass all enemy damage reflection, meaning, well, if you're fighting the Telethia that likes to reflect thermal or ether damage, you can easily use this and just not have to worry about that at all, which can actually be really, really nice. You also recover HP when your aura dissipates. That's going to be the least useful effect here, but having reduced secondary cooldown is really nice, and having the ability to bypass any reflection can still be very nice as well. Now, I am running the knife for this specific setup. I also run the shield for some of the other setups that I use in this video, because those are going to be the two best melee supporting weapons generally. You can make the dual swords work as well with Shadowrunner, since that also boosts your potential as an aura, but I'm just using full specs here to have the potential boost. It also comes with a ranged attack boost if you use a ranged attack build instead. And I'm also running Energy Source, which also boosts your potential just as a buff effect, which can be very nice. Shield has Mindstorm, which is also a buff effect, which is also very nice. And I'm using Screamer as just kind of the sleep build, just kind of showcase that I can spam my TP arts while the enemy is asleep. If you use Shield, you can use Topple Locking instead. You can also run a Reflect build with either the Shield, Photon Saber, or Javelin as your melee weapon if you want to run Reflect as your form of survivability. And if you can somehow make it work, Dual Swords can actually be really effective as a supporting weapon as well, even though you have a little bit less survivability with that option. You might have to spec into your attribute resistances if you want to keep yourself alive, depending on the enemy that you are fighting. But there are a lot of options you do have available to you to kind of support your massive damage with the Gatling gun, but the main thing that I like if you want to get the most damage possible is just going to be the knife as a supporting weapon, since you have two ways to boost your potential stat, and you have other options available to you that can also boost your damage depending on what you are running, like Black Butterfly can reduce ether resistance if you are running an ether build. So you have all of those options available to you, so that can be very nice to have. For the thermal build that I am showing off, I am running both Feather Touch and Beauty Sleep. Feather Touch will allow me not to wake enemies with arts, so if I keep spamming arts, I will not wake up enemies. Auto attack still will wake up the enemy, so I do have to keep that in mind, and that can be a little bit annoying, especially if you get a really ill-timed soul voice that just stops you from spamming arts for a second. But you can keep the enemy asleep if you just keep attacking with arts only, and if you are in overdrive, you should ideally be trying to use arts at all times to make sure you don't accidentally wake enemies. Next up, we have Beauty Sleep. This will just extend the sleep effect, so I don't have to keep reapplying sleep, especially because you can accidentally get sleep 4 and be unable to overwrite it, so I'm just using this as kind of an insurance method to kind of keep the enemy asleep for longer, and not have to worry about it too much, depending on what we are fighting, as long as it's not immune to sleep anyway, for this specific setup. Next up, I have Trigger Happy and Combo Gunner. These will just give me bonus effects when I trigger ranged combos, and we're going to try to trigger ranged combos with both of our TP potential-based arts, both Hellfire and Thermal Payload. This will boost damage 125% when we trigger ranged combos, and Trigger Happy will reduce arts cooldowns by 50% when we trigger a ranged combo, meaning we can use the arts even more often if we have those available to us. And then finally, I'm running Secondary Accelerator to just reduce my secondary cooldowns even further, so once again, I can spam my arts even more often. I can get much more benefit out of my 2 TP-based potential arts there to get a lot of damage off. You have a lot of other options available to you. If you are running the Ether-based build, you obviously want to run a Core Crusher on one of your slots. If you're not running a Sleep build, you can replace both of these. If you run a Topple build, you could want to replace at least one of them with Long Topple. If you are not running either, you can probably just replace with General Damage Boost. You have Inner Search available to you if you want to get more potential, which can be very, very nice as an option. You can also change your class to Mastermind to get more potential if you really need to. You have other forms of damage boost, like you can actually have a damage boost from an enemy that is asleep with Unpleasant Dream. It's slightly more than Combo Gunner, but I'm keeping Combo Gunner just in case the enemy I'm fighting wakes up while I'm using an attack, which will allow me to get more damage out of that attack if the enemy does wake up while I'm using it. You also have Night Vision, which can just be a general 100% damage boost at nighttime, which can be very good. You kind of know what's useful and what's strong at this point, I would imagine. But yes, these are the general skills you're probably going to want to focus on. For the actual equipment setup, I am using a thermal cannon from the Nippon Commerce Guild. This can actually come with some other pretty useful traits, such as Overdrive Count Up, I believe is one of the traits you can actually get on it, and Secondary Cooldown Reducer can be another trait you can actually get on it, but those are going to be more annoying to get traits for a lot of the times, and I just decided to run this just to kind of showcase the build. But if you can get those traits, you can get a lot of benefit out of them. But if you do want to run a thermal cannon, this is probably going to be the only real option you have available to you. If you want to run an ether-based cannon, you have the Ultra Nebulon Zeus from the Orphean Technologies. You can get some pretty good traits from these, especially if you're running a ranged attack build. You can get a ranged attack build with weapon attack power up, ranged attack up, and critical chance up, which I have on one of these here. And the Ultra Nebulon Grando can come with potential up and is also an ether-based cannon. So if you want a potential build, you're going to want to run a Grando. If you want a ranged attack build, you're going to want to run a Zeus. If you want an ether-based ether cannon. You could honestly still consider running an ether cannon even though you have thermal-based arts because, well, if they're locked to thermal damage, it doesn't really matter too much for those that are locked to thermal damage. You can definitely still use Missile Volley to lower thermal resistance into your thermal payload if you really want to, while still alternating really powerful Hellfires with Core Crusher in between there as well. So you can kind of mix and match both of those builds if you really want to also. Besides that, I also have an Ultra Diamond Fugio, the knife, that's going to have potential boost up on it. I also have a shield with potential boost on it when I use the shield build. So we have both of those options available to us to just kind of boost our damage as much as possible with potential. As far as the actual augments, I of course have the 5 Appendage Crushers to get the most damage possible against most of the enemies that I'm fighting. If you're fighting something like the Earlith Nemesis, you can actually break the chest, target the weak point, and it has an appendage hardness of -4, meaning you only need 1 Appendage Crusher for the maximum amount of damage, meaning you can run a lot of secondary cooldown reducers and just spam that Hellfire, which is, like I said, one of the optimal and strongest strategies that the game used to have available to it before a lot of the new arts were added into this game. You want to run as much potential as you can, where you can, obviously. Now, I'm running the Ultra and Infinite Screen because of that, because it has both potential up and potential boost as traits on it, which is not too terribly hard to get on any of your headpieces. So you definitely want to run these to get as much potential as possible. I am also running the Shop Gear, Reginald Breaker, and Reginald Trudgers because that's the only way to get potential up as a trait on these pieces of armor. If you do want to run a different torso than the shop torso, you can get one with Aura Rapid Cooldown on it, which can be very nice to just kind of spam your arts more often, since I am running those as some of my augment effects here just to boost my cooldowns even further. But otherwise, you probably want to stick with the shop gear that has potential up on it. I'm also running the Ultra Infinite Yeast. This has ranged attack up, max TP up, and extend overdrive. This is mainly for the max TP up, so I don't have only 3000 TP. I want to have a little bit more just to make everything a bit safer, just to make everything work a little bit better. And the extend overdrive is just kind of generally nice just to make things a little bit easier as well, so I don't have to keep reactivating overdrive or just making sure I have enough overdrive duration. I'm also running Ultra Regal Ward. This is mainly for the overdrive count up. The melee attack does not matter at all. You could definitely replace this with something else. I just really wanted the overdrive count up just to kind of build up my count a little bit faster so I could show off the build in a bit more detail. You don't really need ranged attack if you're not running a ranged attack setup, but if you are running a ranged attack setup, obviously replace this with a ranged attack arm instead. And then, of course, as my actual augments, I'm running 2 potential ups, 1 potential boost, and then 2 aura rapid cooldowns. The two Aura Rapid cooldowns combined with the Trigger Happy skill to give you 90% cooldown reduction, which is really, really nice on your arts, so you can spam those arts even more often once they just get off cooldown and the secondary cooldown ticks over. So that is very, very nice to have. It allows you to use your arts very quickly and just kind of rapidly back to back, which can be very nice for this build, especially if you actually are in an online environment and have someone feeding you TP, so you don't have to constantly try to get your TP back with other methods. I think that is probably going to cover it for the setup, though. Let's go ahead and showcase this build in action and just how you can use it if you have everything set up properly. Full disclosure here, to showcase how fun the build can be if you actually can spam, I am going to be taking advantage of Mega Tensifiers a few times throughout this fight just to kind of make sure that I have a bunch of TP. If you want to access your battle items, just press the start button and then scroll. You should be able to find your battle items and use Mega Tensifiers if you've been keeping up with your division rewards, of course. My general strategy is take advantage of my overdrive count-up to build up TP very quickly, and also use my aura into my cool-off to get some TP back as well, to just kind of make sure I can get to max count very, very quickly here. Once my aura comes back up, I'm able to start the spam after I put the enemy asleep, and you're going to see me just alternating my arts as much as I can here. Hellfire into thermal payload, Hellfire into thermal payload, and then mixing in some sleep when I think I need to, or if I need to at the very least. And then using other ranged attacks before my two TP arts just to make sure that I do not accidentally don't trigger the combo gunner effect or the trigger happy effect. I want to make sure that I'm triggering those to get the most damage possible. I see that my thermal resistance down has worn off, so I also have to make sure I reapply thermal resistance down, and then I can keep spamming my TP arts again after that. So you can see, even with the thermal build, you can do a lot of damage here. Hellfire and thermal payload can do a lot of damage, and you can end fights very, very fast. Now, you can definitely do this without Mega Tensifiers. You'll just have to use your purple arts more often, and it'll definitely take a little bit longer. I also want to showcase the ether-based build you would do if you just focus mainly on Hellfire damage instead, but you can mix in thermal payloads for this build as well. And for this one, I'm going to do it without spamming a bunch of Mega Tensifiers, just to showcase what the fight might look like otherwise. I did change my skills around a little bit to account for that as well, and also give myself more potential instead of Aura Rapid cooldown, but I am going to show this off as well. I'm also going to use the Shield Topple build for this, so I'm not going to have as much potential as if I was using the knives, since I'm not going to have full specs available to me, but I am going to be able to use the other Gatling gun Aura here, which can be really, really nice as well. The one that gives me a reduced secondary cooldown, so I don't have to run secondary accelerator. So I'm just going to use that as a form of boosting that instead. So I'm going to be using Trash Talk very liberally as my main purple art for getting my TP back in this case. And I'm going to topple every time Grativus stands up, obviously. And that's going to be the main way to just kind of build count before we start using our really powerful arts. And then Titan Recharge is going to be activated to give myself that aura bonus so I can do more damage with Hellfire. And then I can use Missile Volley for additional count, or my other ranged art for additional count as well. And then I make sure I cancel into a ranged art into Hellfire here. So Hellfire does a lot of damage, as you just saw, if you can actually try to set everything up properly. I started the fight with the Agostor Cannon Bind just to make sure I get ether resistance down as well, so I do more ether damage. So Hellfire can do even more additional damage, even without the knife available to me, even without Black Bane. You can see it does about 25% of the health bar every single time I use it, which can be very, very strong and very, very powerful. And I think 2 more Hellfires should end this fight very easily. That one did less damage than the other ones. I must have accidentally lost my aura. I'm not entirely sure, but not the biggest deal in the world. Yep, 1 more Hellfire does end it there on the second attempt. I really like the Gatling. I think it's a lot of fun. Like I said, with the right support, it can actually be one of the most spammable weapons in the entire game, which can be really, really nice as far as just using all of your arts very quickly. You can also kill most enemies in the game with 1 singular art with the right support or the right setup, or at least 2 arts, which also can be very, very nice as well. Hellfire there did half of Pars's health, and I wasn't even at max overdrive count yet. So once Hellfire is back up cooldown, I can just use that 1 more time, and it'll basically end the fight here. I do want to make sure I trigger the range combo, though, so I do end up doing that. And then 1 more Hellfire, and Parsis is dead. But like I said, very, very fun build, very, very fun setup that you can have here. I'm going to show some footage from Void here about how the Hellfire spam can actually work if you have the full proper secondary cooldown build, just very quickly, since we don't have any Nemesis runs in the new game yet that use this strategy. So thanks to him for the footage. But yes, if you just want to see how much fun spamming Hellfire can be and just how nuts it can end up being, he is running the dual swords just for the potential boost on Shadowrunner. But you can just see how much damage Hellfire can end up doing here. It's really, really funny. Just kind of goes crazy, honestly. Looks like this video is going to end up being shorter than a lot of my other videos just because we ended the fights very quickly, but that's okay. If you did enjoy this video, do be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends who are new to the game, and I do hope that you learned something from watching. And if you did, please do look forward to all of my future videos on the game. I still have a few more things prepared. We still have 2 more weapon guides to cover. We have an AI or party member tier list to make. We got a couple other videos that I have planned as well, so please do look forward to all of that. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you back here soon.